I held my daughter's hand as the machines around us hummed in their steady rhythm. Grace was only 3, and her tiny fingers could barely curl around my thumb. The pediatric oncology ward carried that familiar mix of antiseptic and false reassurance, and I had memorized every crack in the ceiling above her bed. "Mommy, can we go to the park when I feel better?" Grace asked softly, her voice raspy after the breathing tube had been removed that morning. "Of course, sweetheart," I said, brushing her fine hair away from her forehead. "We'll go on the swings, just like before." Grace smiled, and for a fleeting second, I could imagine the cancer eating away at her body was just a terrible dream. But the doctors had been clear in our last meeting, stage 4 neuroblastoma. The experimental treatment hadn't worked. We were down to weeks now, maybe even days. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I ignored it. Right now, nothing mattered except the small hand in mine, the child who had filled my once colorless world with light the moment she was born. The phone buzzed again. "You can check it, Mommy," Grace said gently. "I'm okay." Expecting messages from my supervisor at the community health clinic, I took out my phone. Instead, there were 17 messages from my sister, Vanessa. The first one made my stomach tighten. "Mira, I know this is hard for you, but I really need you to come to my housewarming party." I finally bought my dream house. I stared at the screen. Vanessa knew Grace was dying. She'd only visited once in 6 months, staying just long enough to complain about parking fees. I scrolled through the rest. Mom and Dad are flying in. Everyone will be there. June 15th. Does that work for you? You've been so focused on Grace. You need a distraction. June 15th. I looked at my daughter's chest rising and falling with effort. The doctor said mid-June at best. My sister wanted to celebrate her new home while I prepared to say goodbye to mine. I didn't reply. I slipped my phone away and sang Grace's favorite lullaby until she fell asleep. That evening, I called Vanessa from the hospital cafeteria. She picked up instantly, her voice full of excitement. "Mira, did you see my messages? Isn't it amazing? The house has 4 bedrooms and a pool, can you believe it?" "Vanessa, I can't talk about party plans right now." "Grace is— I know, she interrupted. "But you can't pause your life forever. This is a big moment for me, and I want my sister there." I closed my eyes. Vanessa had always been that way. Everything revolved around her. When I got married, she announced her engagement at my reception. When I graduated from nursing school, she showed up late and spent the evening talking about her promotion at the pharmaceutical company. "What date were you thinking?" I asked, though I already knew. "June 15th, she said cheerfully. "It's perfect. Summer weather, everyone's available." Mom and Dad are already booking flights from Phoenix. "That's when Grace might—" My voice faltered. "The doctor said early to mid-June. I might be planning a funeral then, Vanessa." Silence filled the line. Then came that familiar sigh, the one that meant I was being unreasonable. "Mira," she said finally, "I understand you're going through something terrible. I really do. But life moves on, and we can't expect everyone to pause their lives forever. If something comes up with Grace, we'll manage it. But I've already paid deposits to the caterers, and the invitations are being printed." A chill spread through my chest. "You're saying your housewarming party is more important than my daughter's life?" "That's not what I'm saying at all. Don't twist it," she replied. "I just mean we can't stay in uncertainty forever. Honestly, you might even need the distraction. When was the last time you did something for yourself?" I hung up. My hands trembled so much I almost dropped the phone. Grace passed away on June 9th, just after sunrise. I was holding her hand when she opened her eyes one last time, smiled faintly, and whispered, "I love you, Mommy." Then she was gone. The machine began to shriek. Nurses rushed in, and someone pulled me away from her body while I struggled to breathe. The funeral was scheduled for June 15th, the earliest the funeral home could arrange. That evening, I called my parents, my voice hollow. "The funeral is on the 15th, I said. "Grace's funeral." My mother went silent for a moment. "Oh, honey, that's the same day as Vanessa's housewarming party." "I know." "Well, I'm sure Vanessa will understand. She'll reschedule. This is more important." I wanted to believe her. I waited for her to say she'd call Vanessa right away, that of course they'd attend their granddaughter's funeral, that nothing else could take priority. Instead, my mother said, "Let me talk to your father and Vanessa. We'll figure something out." That night, Vanessa called. I almost didn't pick up, but part of me hoped she'd make things right. "Mira, Mom told me about the funeral date. Vanessa began, her voice cautious. "I'm so sorry about Grace. Truly." "Thank you," I said quietly, "but I've thought about it, and I just can't move the party date. Over 100 guests are invited, the caterers and band are booked, and changing it would cost thousands. I already lost my tent rental deposit because they're fully booked for the rest of the summer." Her words felt distant, muffled, like I was underwater. "You want me to change my daughter's funeral date?" I asked. "Well, does it have to be that exact day? Couldn't you do it a week before or after? Funerals are more flexible than people think. My friend's mother passed last year and they waited 3 weeks for the service." "Grace is at the funeral home, Vanessa. In a refrigerator. You want me to leave my daughter's body there so you can have your party?" "Don't be dramatic. I'm just saying there are options. Honestly, Mira, funerals are so depressing. Maybe waiting a bit would give everyone time to process, to let the shock fade." "The shock of my daughter dying?" "Yes, look, I don't want to argue. You're grieving and not thinking clearly. Talk to the funeral home, explain the situation. I'm sure they'll work with you. Work with me, around your party." Her tone sharpened. "You're being selfish. This is a huge moment in my life and you're trying to ruin it. Everything always revolves around you and your problems. Some of us are actually moving forward, Mira. Some of us have things to celebrate." I hung up again. This time I turned off my phone. The next morning, my father called the hospital, where I was still staying in the family waiting room, unable to face my empty apartment. A nurse came to find me. "Mira, your father's on the line." I took the call in an empty consultation room. "Honey, your mother and I have been talking," my father began, his voice carrying that forced brightness he used for bad news. "We think Vanessa has a point. It would cost her a lot to change everything now, and she's worked hard for that house. Maybe you could move the funeral. We could all come if it were on another weekend. You're choosing Vanessa's party over Grace's funeral." "We're not choosing anything," he said. "We're trying to find a solution that works for everyone. It's been hard on the whole family, not just you. Vanessa's been stressed about the house closing, your mother's been worried sick, and I had to take time off work to handle all this emotional strain." "Emotional turmoil?" I repeated. "Your granddaughter died, Dad. And we're heartbroken." "You know we are," he said. "But Grace wouldn't want us to stop living. She'd want us to celebrate life. Vanessa's new house represents the future, hope. Maybe that's what this family needs right now." I looked out the window at the parking lot, watching people go about their normal lives. "So, you're going to her party?" I asked. He hesitated. "We've already bought plane tickets, and Vanessa really needs us there. She's been planning this for months. It's not like we didn't care about Grace. We sent cards. We called when we could. You visited twice in 6 months. We live in Phoenix, Mira. We can't just drop everything and fly out every week. We have lives too, responsibilities. Your mother has her book club and volunteer work. I have golf tournaments. We can't put everything on hold." Something inside me went quiet and cold. "Don't come to the funeral," I said. "Go to your party. Celebrate Vanessa's house. I hope you all have a wonderful time." "Mira, don't be like that." I hung up. My mother called an hour later, then Vanessa, then my father again. I blocked them all. That evening, my best friend Julia came to the hospital with coffee and made me eat something. She was the charge nurse in the pediatric ICU and had been there through every stage of Grace's illness. "Your family's unbelievable," Julia said, eyes blazing. "Who does that? Chooses a party over a funeral?" "People who never really cared," I replied. My own voice sounded distant, hollow. "What are you going to do?" "Have the funeral. Say goodbye to my daughter. Try to remember how to breathe." Julia took my hand. "I'll be there. Everyone from the hospital who loved Grace will be there." You're not alone, but I was. I had never felt more alone. The funeral was small. Julia came. Grace's father, David, flew in from Seattle, where he had moved after our divorce. We'd split when Grace was 1, and though his involvement had been uneven, he had loved her in his own way. His face was lined with grief. A few colleagues from the clinic came, some neighbors and Grace's preschool teacher, who cried through the service. My family did not. I stood beside Grace's small white casket and read the eulogy I'd written at 3 a.m, my hands shaking so badly the paper trembled. I spoke about her laugh, her love for strawberries, and how she made up songs about everything she saw. I talked about her courage, how she never complained, even when treatment left her too weak to lift her head. I spoke of the light she brought into the world and how that light had been extinguished too soon. I didn't mention my sister. I didn't mention my parents. I didn't mention that half the people who should have been there were instead sitting by a pool, eating catered food, celebrating square footage and granite countertops. After the service, after Grace was lowered into the ground, after I threw dirt onto her casket and heard the hollow thud it made, I went home to my apartment. It was full of Grace's things, her toys, her clothes, her drawings covering the refrigerator. I sat on the floor of her room and opened my laptop. I unblocked my family's numbers, not to reconcile, but to see what they had posted. Vanessa's social media was full of party photos. She wore a flowing white dress, her blonde hair perfect, her smile radiant. The house looked spectacular. String lights hung across the pool, casting a warm glow. Tables were stacked with food, and people danced across the lawn. My parents appeared in several photos, smiling, glasses raised in celebration. One picture showed my mother and Vanessa hugging, both teary-eyed with joy. The caption read, "So grateful to have my amazing mom here for the biggest day of my life. Nothing is better than family." Another post from Vanessa, time-stamped at 2 p.m., the exact moment I stood beside Grace's grave, read, "Surrounded by love and support on this perfect day. My heart is full. Here's to new beginnings." Beneath it, my father had commented, "So proud of my successful daughter. You've earned every bit of this happiness." I shut the laptop before I threw it against the wall. A week later, my mother called. I answered, curious to hear what she'd say. "Mira, honey, I know you're upset, but we need to talk about this like adults. You can't just cut off your whole family over one disagreement." "One disagreement?" "Yes, we had different opinions about the schedule," she continued. "That doesn't mean we don't love you. We're your family. You need to forgive us and move on." "Did you have a good time at the party?" I asked. My mother hesitated. "It was lovely. Vanessa's house is beautiful. But we thought about you the whole time, we really did." "You thought about me while dancing by the pool?" I said flatly. "Mira, you're being vindictive. Vanessa worked so hard for that house. We couldn't disappoint her. And honestly, it's not like we could have done anything for Grace. She was already gone. Our being there wouldn't have changed that. It would have changed it for me. You need to stop being so selfish. Everything isn't about you and your feelings. Vanessa has feelings too. She was hurt that you made such a big deal about the date conflict. She felt like you were trying to overshadow her accomplishment." I laughed, an ugly, broken sound. I was burying my daughter and Vanessa felt overshadowed? "You know what I mean," she said, voice tight. "You've always had a flair for drama, Mira. Ever since you were little, always needing attention, always turning things into a crisis. We love you, but we can't enable this behavior anymore." "Don't call me again," I said. "Mira Jane, don't you dare." I hung up and blocked them all again. That night, sleep wouldn't come. I lay staring at the ceiling, my sister's words looping in my mind. A minor event. That's what she had called Grace's funeral. A minor event she could work around if necessary. My daughter's funeral, just a minor event. Something inside me solidified. Cold, hard, and unyielding. They wanted forgiveness, wanted me to move on, to treat this as an unfortunate scheduling issue, a misunderstanding. But it wasn't that. It was a choice. They had chosen Vanessa's party over my daughter's funeral. They had chosen granite countertops over grief. They had chosen celebration while I buried my child. And they expected me to accept it, to be the bigger person, to protect family harmony over my shattered heart. I got out of bed and opened my laptop. I began making lists, conducting research, and outlining plans. If they believed they could treat me this way without facing consequences, they were mistaken. If they imagined their lives would continue smoothly while I drowned in grief and anger, they were wrong. I had always been the responsible one, the caretaker, the peacemaker, the one who forgave and maintained harmony. As a nurse, I had devoted my life to helping others, healing and easing pain. But compassion had brought me nothing but betrayal. I was done caring for people who didn't care about me. Vanessa wanted to celebrate her success. I would ensure there was nothing left for her to celebrate. My parents had enabled her selfishness. They would soon understand the cost. I had weeks of unused vacation, savings I had once kept for Grace's future, money that now served no purpose. I had skills, knowledge, and determination. Most importantly, I had nothing left to lose. Over the next 3 days, I made calls, gathered records, and asked discreet questions of the right people. My years in healthcare had built relationships and taught me how systems worked. Those connections were about to become valuable. By the end of the week, I had what I needed: information, leverage, and a plan that would dismantle everything Vanessa had built. Because Vanessa wasn't just selling pharmaceuticals. She was cutting corners, falsifying sales data, and pressuring doctors to prescribe drugs for unsafe, off-label uses. And I had proof. I began with the pharmaceutical board. Vanessa worked for Healthwise Pharmaceuticals, a mid-sized company specializing in pain management drugs. She had been their top sales representative for 3 consecutive years, earning bonuses far beyond my annual salary. She drove a luxury car, wore designer clothes, and had recently bought an $800,000 house, all built on fraud. During one of Grace's hospital stays, I had overheard 2 doctors discussing a sales rep who pressured them to prescribe higher doses of a new pain medication. They mentioned her by name, Vanessa. At the time, I dismissed it as coincidence. My sister was ambitious, but I never believed she'd cross legal lines. Then I started observing. I listened closely, asked subtle questions, and soon realized Vanessa was offering kickbacks disguised as consulting, fees, and speaking honorariums. She had been altering prescription data to meet sales targets and promoting off-label use of a medication with severe cardiac side effects linked to at least 2 patient deaths. I collected documentation. Emails Vanessa sent from her personal account complaining about stupid rules, text messages joking about how easy doctors were to manipulate, and recorded calls where she urged higher doses than medically approved. I compiled everything into a detailed report and reached out to an investigative journalist named Trevor, who had previously covered pharmaceutical corruption. I had met him 2 years earlier when he interviewed nurses from my clinic for a story on healthcare costs. We met at a coffee shop in downtown Austin on a Wednesday morning. Trevor, in his 40s with graying hair and sharp, observant eyes, skimmed through the documents. "This is serious," he said. "Where did you get all this?" "I'm a nurse. I work in the system. I notice things. And the subject is your sister?" "Yes," he studied me carefully. "This could ruin her career and lead to criminal charges." "Are you sure?" "She called my daughter's funeral a minor inconvenience," I replied. "She held our housewarming the same day and expected me to reschedule. My parents went to her party instead of being with me." "So yes, I'm sure," Trevor nodded. "I'll need to verify everything independently. It might take a few weeks, but if it checks out, I'll publish. That's all I ask." Leaving the coffee shop, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. The first domino was set. Now I just had to wait for it to fall. While Trevor investigated, I turned my focus to my parents, the ones who had enabled Vanessa all her life and chosen her over me. Time after time. They deserved consequences, too. My parents, Harold and Janet, lived in a retirement community in Phoenix. 5 years earlier, they had sold our family home in Dallas and moved to Arizona for the warm weather and lower taxes. My father was a retired accountant. My mother had worked as a real estate agent before retiring. They were financially stable but not wealthy. Their income came from my father's pension, Social Security, and a modest investment portfolio he personally managed. I knew his investment habits well. He often talked about them whenever we visited. He took pride in his financial skills, always boasting about the returns he made. Everything was kept in a brokerage account he checked daily. I also knew he used the same password for nearly everything. I had seen him log into different accounts, always typing the same combination, the street name of our old house and my mother's birth year. He thought it was clever, better than using birthdays or pet names. I never planned to steal from my parents. That would be criminal. But I could make their financial world far more complicated. I created multiple email addresses that looked like legitimate financial institutions and sent my father messages warning of suspicious activity, missing tax documents, and urgent security updates. I knew exactly how he'd react. He would panic, act impulsively, and call his brokerage in confusion, demanding answers about things that didn't exist. He would freeze accounts, move funds, and create chaos trying to protect money that wasn't in danger. I also sent carefully written emails to my mother, pretending to be from her former real estate firm. I asked about old commission discrepancies, hinted at potential tax issues, and requested documents she no longer had. Within a week, my father called Vanessa in distress. I knew because she posted about it on social media, complaining about family drama while trying to enjoy her new house. Dad thinks his accounts are hacked, she wrote. Spent 2 hours calming him down. Why are old people so bad with technology? Perfect. 2 weeks after my meeting with Trevor, he called. I've confirmed everything, he said. The story goes live tomorrow. The pharmaceutical board's been alerted and they're opening an investigation. Federal prosecutors are looking into it too. Your sister's about to have a very bad day. Thank you, I said. I'm sorry about your daughter, Trevor added quietly. I have a kid. I can't imagine what you've been through. I hope this gives you some peace. It wouldn't bring me peace. Nothing could bring Grace back. But it gave me satisfaction, and that was enough. The article came out Thursday morning. It was front-page news on the Austin Chronicle's online edition, with a headline that left no room for doubt. Top pharmaceutical sales rep accused of fraud, kickbacks, and endangering patients. Vanessa's name appeared in the first paragraph, her photo pulled from her own social media. The report described years of misconduct, listing examples, verified evidence, and statements from doctors confirming the pressure tactics she used. By noon, her social media accounts were gone. By afternoon, news vans were outside her new house. By evening, Healthwise Pharmaceuticals released a statement announcing her termination and cooperation with investigators. My phone rang nonstop. I ignored every call from family. Instead, I went to Grace's grave and sat beside her headstone. I've started it, sweetheart, I whispered. They'll finally understand. They'll feel even a fraction of what I did. The stone was still new, the grass around it barely grown. Grace's name was etched simply, Grace Elizabeth, beloved daughter, born into love, taken too soon. I traced the letters with my fingers, trying not to picture how small her casket had been. Then my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was Vanessa, clearly using someone else's phone. How could you do this to me? I'm your sister. You've ruined my life. Mom and Dad are heartbroken. You're a monster. I deleted the message without replying. That evening, Julia came over with takeout I couldn't eat. She sat quietly beside me on the couch, just being there. The story's everywhere, she said finally. People are talking about it at the hospital. Some of the doctors named in it work with us. Good. Mira, are you okay? No, I said. But I will be. Julia looked at me sadly. Revenge doesn't usually make people feel better. It just makes them feel empty. I already feel empty, I replied. At least now I'm not the only one. The investigation moved fast. Within a month, federal prosecutors filed charges: healthcare fraud, kickbacks, conspiracy to defraud the government. Each carried serious prison time. Vanessa tried to reach me, calls, texts, even showing up at my apartment. I changed the locks and installed a security camera. When she came crying at my door, I watched through the monitor and didn't open it. Please, Mira, she begged into the intercom. Please talk to me. I'm sorry about the funeral. I was wrong. I admit it. But this is too much. You're destroying me over one mistake, one bad decision. Is that really fair? I asked before pressing the button to respond. You called Grace's funeral a minor event. You celebrated while I buried my daughter. Fairness doesn't exist anymore, Vanessa. You taught me that. I ended the call and drew the curtains shut. My parents finally reached me through the clinic, claiming a family emergency to get through during work hours. I answered in the break room, hand gripping the phone tightly. What you did to your sister is unforgivable, my mother began without greeting. You've destroyed her life over a party mirror. A party? I said, disbelief cutting through my voice. It was never about the party. It was about what it represented. You chose her happiness over my grief. You chose a house over my daughter. We tried to be there for both our daughters, she replied. We couldn't be in two places at once. That doesn't make us monsters. You could have been at the funeral, I said evenly. You could have told Vanessa to postpone. You could have done anything else, but you made your choice. Now live with it. What Vanessa did at her job has nothing to do with us, my mother insisted. You can't punish us for her mistakes. I'm not punishing you for her mistakes, I replied. I'm holding you accountable for yours. Consider the financial problems you've faced lately, a reminder that actions have consequences. Silence followed. Then her voice turned cold. That was you? The emails, the account issues, you've been sabotaging your father? I've been creating small inconveniences for people who showed me none when I needed compassion most. Seems fair to me. You need professional help, she said sharply. This isn't normal behavior. Normal? I repeated. Normal was watching my daughter die. Normal was standing at her grave alone. Normal was seeing my family celebrate while I mourned. I'm done with normal. I hung up. The next stage of my plan demanded patience. I waited 3 months while Vanessa's legal problems deepened. Her bail was set at $200,000, forcing her to use her new house as collateral. Legal fees drained her. The pharmaceutical world blacklisted her. Even unrelated jobs turned her away. As expected, my parents stepped in. They always did. I watched from a distance as they sold investments to pay her lawyers, then took a second mortgage on their retirement condo to cover her bail, sinking into debt to protect their favorite child. Then I reached out to several news outlets with a new angle. I sent them photos from Vanessa's housewarming party, my parents laughing, toasting her success with timestamps. Alongside those, I gave the date of my daughter's funeral. The resulting stories were ruthless. While niece buried, family celebrated house built on fraud. Parents chose party over grandchild's funeral, now bankrupt supporting criminal daughter. The report spread fast. Social media erupted. Strangers who had never met us sent hateful messages. My parents' retirement community complained. Vanessa's neighbors, some of whom had attended the party, expressed disgust in interviews. The public judgment was merciless. My mother called again, her voice shaking. Are you happy now? Satisfied? We've lost everything, our savings, our reputation, our peace. Strangers spit at us in stores. We can't go anywhere without being harassed. Your father had a heart attack from the stress. He's in the hospital. Does that make you feel better? Is he going to die? I asked calmly. What? I'm asking if he's going to die. Because if he is, I should probably know so I can plan ahead. I'd hate to have scheduling conflicts. My mother let out a sound like a wounded animal. How did you become this person? You made me this person, I said quietly. You taught me that family means nothing, that love is conditional, that some celebrations matter more than another person's grief. I learned from the best. Grace wouldn't want this, she whispered. She was a kind child. She'd be horrified by what you're doing. The sound of my daughter's name in her mouth made my blood boil. Don't you dare mention Grace. You have no right to speak about her. You abandoned her, chose a party over her funeral. The moment you made that decision, she stopped being your granddaughter. We loved Grace. You loved only the image of her, the perfect child you could post online, pose with at holidays, and boast about to friends. You never loved the real Grace, the sick little girl who needed genuine care, time, and sacrifice. That was too much effort for you. That's not true. It's completely true. You visited her twice in 6 months, twice while she was dying. You couldn't bother to come more often because it would interrupt your golf games and book club. So don't pretend you cared. Don't pretend you're anything but selfish people who only value appearances. My mother began to cry. We're your parents. We made mistakes, but we did our best. We don't deserve this. I was your daughter. My only mistake was loving you. I didn't deserve what you did to me either. Life isn't fair, Mother. You taught me that lesson well. I hung up and blocked their number. 4 months after the first article, Vanessa's trial began. The evidence was undeniable. She accepted a plea deal, 5 years in federal prison, repayment to victims, and a permanent ban from working in healthcare or pharmaceuticals. Her sentencing was public. I attended, sitting quietly in the back of the courtroom. Vanessa saw me, our eyes met. Hers were filled with both tears and hatred. When asked if she wanted to speak before sentencing, she stood. Her designer clothes had been replaced by a plain gray suit, her hair tied back simply. I take responsibility for my actions, she said, voice trembling. I made terrible choices. I hurt people. I broke the trust of patients and professionals. I deserve punishment, she paused, then looked directly at me. But I want the court to know that my own sister caused my downfall, not out of concern or morality, but revenge. She destroyed my life because I attended my housewarming instead of her daughter's funeral. She isn't a hero. She's vindictive and cruel, and she used the law as her weapon, the prosecutor objected. The judge sustained it, but Vanessa had said her piece. She was sentenced to the agreed 5 years. As she was led away, she looked back once more. I met her gaze, expression calm, until she turned away. My parents tried one last time to reach me. They came to Austin, showing up at the clinic where I worked. Security called me to the lobby. They looked terrible, my father thinner, his skin gray, my mother's hands trembling. They looked 10 years older. "We're leaving Phoenix," my father said. "We can't afford to stay. We sold the condo at a loss and are moving to a smaller place in Oklahoma near your aunt. We wanted to see you before we left." "Okay. That's all you have to say?" "What do you want me to say, Dad?" "I want you to tell us we can fix this, that we're still a family, that there's a way forward." I looked at them. These people who gave me life but never truly saw me. People who taught me that love had to be earned by being quiet, compliant, and convenient. "There's no family here," I said. "You killed that when you chose a party over a funeral, when you told me my grief mattered less than Vanessa's celebration, when you left me to bury my daughter alone." "We've lost everything," my mother whispered. "Our home, our savings, our daughter is in prison, our reputation is gone. Haven't we suffered enough?" "I lost my daughter," I said. "My 3-year-old who loved strawberries and songs, who fought cancer braver than you've faced anything, who died asking to go to the park when she got better. I lost everything that mattered, and you couldn't even be there." "We're sorry," my father said softly. "We made terrible mistakes, but this bitterness has to end. This cruelty must stop. It already has," I replied. "Vanessa's in prison. You're bankrupt. My revenge is done. But that doesn't mean I forgive you. It doesn't make us family again. It just means there's nothing left to destroy." My mother reached for my hand. I stepped back. "Don't contact me again. Don't come here. Don't send messages or intermediaries. We're done, permanently. Mara, please. My name isn't Mara to you anymore. I'm a stranger. Treat me like one." I walked away. Security escorted them out. I never saw them again. 6 months after Vanessa went to prison, I received a letter from her. It had been opened and screened by authorities before reaching me. I almost threw it away, but curiosity made me read it. The handwriting was messy, unlike her usual perfect script. "Mira, I don't expect you to forgive me. Honestly, I doubt I deserve it. But I need you to understand one thing. I was wrong about the party. I should have canceled it and been at Grace's funeral. My choices were selfish and cruel, and I've had a long time to reflect on that. Still, what you did went far beyond justice. You didn't just expose what I did, you planned my complete downfall. You destroyed Mom and Dad financially and turned everyone against us. You used my failures as a weapon for revenge. I know I belong in prison. I earned this. But you didn't put me here because you cared about the people I hurt. You did it because you wanted me to feel pain. And I do every single day. I've lost everything. My career, my home, my freedom, my family. I hope it was worth it to you. I hope my suffering fills the emptiness Grace left behind. But I don't think it will. That emptiness won't fade no matter how many people you destroy. I loved Grace too, even if I failed to show it. I know I was a terrible aunt, but she mattered to me. And I think she'd be heartbroken to see what you've turned into. Vanessa." I read that letter twice before burning it in the kitchen sink and rinsing the ashes away. A year after Grace's death, I visited her grave on a quiet Sunday morning. The grass had grown back and flowers surrounded the headstone, planted by the caretakers. The air was still except for birds singing in the trees. I told her everything. Vanessa's in prison, Mom and Dad lost everything, and everyone knows what they did. They know they chose a party over her funeral. The wind stirred the leaves, and somewhere nearby, someone placed flowers on another grave. Vanessa said Grace would be sad about who I've become. Maybe she's right. Maybe Grace would be disappointed. But I needed them to understand. I needed them to feel even a fraction of my pain. I sat down in the grass, leaning against her headstone. The truth is, it doesn't feel like I expected. I thought I'd feel justified, that watching them suffer would bring balance. But it's just hollow. A different kind of emptiness, but emptiness all the same. A woman walked by with a little girl about Grace's age. The child was laughing, full of life. I watched them until they vanished behind a mausoleum, and the ache in my chest grew unbearable. "I miss you so much," I whispered. "Every single day, every single moment. Nothing helps. Not revenge, not justice. Nothing. You're gone, and I'm still here, trying to exist in a world without you." I stayed until the sun stood high above, talking to a gravestone, pretending my daughter could hear me. When I finally left, I drove to the support group I'd been attending for the past 6 months. It met every Sunday in a church basement, a gathering of parents who had lost children. I had resisted going for months, believing nothing could help. But Julia insisted. She took me to that first meeting, sat beside me, and held my hand when I cried. The facilitator, Patricia, had lost her son to leukemia 15 years earlier. She had kind eyes and a calm presence, never forcing anyone to speak before they were ready. For 2 months, I said nothing. I only listened, stories of grief, guilt, and desperate attempts to find meaning in meaningless loss. Eventually, I started sharing too. I told them about Grace, her courage, her illness, her final days. I never mentioned the revenge. That part stayed mine alone. Today, Patricia asked how everyone was coping with the coming holidays. Thanksgiving was 3 weeks away, Christmas soon after. The first holiday season without my daughter was unbearable, said Robert, whose teenage daughter died in a car crash. This year, I don't know if I can even try. I'm putting up decorations, said Margaret, who lost her infant to SIDS. It feels wrong, like I'm betraying him. But my other kids need to see that life goes on. When it was my turn, I hesitated. I don't have family anymore, I said. My parents and sister are gone from my life. The holidays are just empty dates now. Easier in some ways, harder in others. Patricia nodded softly. Grief often changes our relationships. Some bonds grow stronger, others break apart. These were meant to break, I said quietly. They were broken long before. I just finally saw it. After the meeting, Diane approached me, a mother who had lost her daughter to brain cancer 2 years earlier. We had spoken before. I heard about your sister, she said softly. The pharmaceutical fraud case. I saw your name mentioned in one of the articles. My stomach tightened. Yes, I don't judge you for it. I want you to know that, Diane said softly. I understand the need to hold people accountable, to make them realize what they've done. She squeezed my arm gently. But please be careful. Revenge can become addictive. It can consume you just like grief does. Don't let it be the only thing that keeps you going. Her words stayed with me during the drive home. Was revenge truly consuming me, or had it simply filled a void nothing else could reach? I didn't know the answer. Work became my refuge. I threw myself into nursing with an intensity that began to worry Julia. I took extra shifts, volunteered for the toughest cases, stayed late, came in early, and skipped lunch breaks. One afternoon, Dr. Harrison, the clinic director, called me into his office. Mira, you're one of our best nurses. Your patient care is outstanding. But you're burning out. Everyone can see it. I'm fine, I insisted. You're not fine, he said calmly. You've worked 50-hour weeks for 3 months straight. You haven't taken a single vacation day since your daughter passed. You need rest. Work helps, I said. It keeps me focused. Dr. Harrison leaned back in his chair, studying me. I lost my brother in medical school, a motorcycle accident. I did exactly what you're doing now. I worked myself to exhaustion trying to outrun the grief. It doesn't work. The pain is always there when you stop. So what's the alternative? I asked quietly. Sit at home and fall apart? The alternative, he said, is learning to live with the grief instead of running from it. Therapy, support groups, time to process. Not just endless work until you collapse. I'm already in a support group. That's good, he said. But you also need to give yourself permission to heal, to live a life beyond your daughter's death. That doesn't mean forgetting her. It means carrying her memory without letting it destroy you. I left his office agitated. Everyone had advice about grief. Everyone seemed to think they knew the right way to mourn, the proper timeline for healing, the acceptable methods of coping. But none of them had buried a 3-year-old. None had been abandoned by their family in their darkest hour. None understood the mix of rage and sorrow that lived in my chest, constant, inseparable. 2 months before the 2nd anniversary of Grace's death, I received an unexpected call. The area code was from Oklahoma, where my parents now lived. But it wasn't them. It was my Aunt Lydia, my father's sister. I hadn't spoken to her since before Grace died. Mira, I know you probably don't want to hear from family right now, but I have to tell you something, she said. Your father had another heart attack, a serious one this time. He's in intensive care. I felt nothing. No panic, no fear, no sadness. Okay, I said. Your mother asked me to call, Lydia continued. She's afraid to reach out herself, but she wanted you to know in case you wanted to visit. I don't, I said flatly. Lydia sighed. I know what happened. Your mother told me everything, the funeral, Vanessa, all of it. What they did was wrong, Mira, unforgivably wrong. But your father might die. Don't you want to say goodbye? He already did, I said quietly. He said goodbye when he chose a party over his granddaughter's funeral. There's nothing left to say. He's consumed by guilt. Both of them are. They know they failed you, but they don't know how to fix it. They can't. It's beyond repair. So you're going to let him die without any closure? You'll carry that forever? I'm already carrying forever, Aunt Lydia. My daughter is gone. She died afraid and in pain. And the ones who were supposed to stand by me turned away. If my father dies, that's not my burden to carry. It's his consequence. You've grown so cold. No, I've become realistic. I spent years believing family meant something, that blood created duty. I was wrong. Family is just people connected by DNA. If they don't act like family, they don't deserve to be treated like one. Grace wouldn't want this. Everyone kept using Grace's name as if her memory gave them the right to judge me. Grace is gone. She doesn't want anything. She died knowing her grandparents cared more about an event than about her. So don't tell me what she would have wanted. I hung up. My father didn't die. He recovered enough to leave the hospital, though he remained weak for the rest of his life. I learned this through mutual contacts, not through family. I felt no relief at his survival, no emotion at all. The second anniversary of Grace's death came on June 9th. I took the day off work and visited the cemetery early, before the heat set in. Her grave looked the same, peaceful, clean, a lasting reminder that my daughter lived, mattered, and was loved. I brought strawberries, her favorite fruit, and placed them beside the stone. 2 years, I said softly. 2 years since you left me. It doesn't feel shorter. It doesn't hurt less. People said time would help. They lied. I sat cross-legged on the grass, the way we used to during picnics before she was too sick to go outside. I destroyed them, Grace. Everyone who hurt us. Vanessa's in prison. Mom and Dad lost everything. They're old, broken, and alone. I did that. I made it happen. Morning sunlight filtered through the trees, casting moving shadows across the graves. Vanessa said you'd be disappointed in me. Maybe she's right. You were always kind, always forgiving. Even in pain, you didn't wish harm on anyone. But I'm not you, sweetheart. I never was. I tried to be good, to rise above, to forgive. It only brought me more pain. I traced your name on the headstone again, a ritual I follow every visit. I don't regret it. That's what I need you to know. I don't regret making them pay. They deserved every bit of suffering I caused. But Diane was right. Revenge didn't fill the emptiness. It just gave me something else to hold on to besides missing you. A groundskeeper mowed in the distance, the hum steady in the quiet morning. I don't know what comes next. I don't know how to live without you or without the purpose of making them pay. I don't know who I am when I'm not grieving or planning revenge. That scares me most of all. I stayed until noon, talking, crying, remembering. When I finally left, I felt hollow but strangely lighter, as if saying it all aloud had released something I'd held too tightly. That evening, Julia came by with dinner. We ate Thai food on the couch while a movie played in the background. "How are you doing?" Julia asked. "Really doing?" "I don't know," I said. "I did what I set out to do. I made them suffer. I got justice or revenge, whatever it was. But now what?" "Now," Julia said, setting her food aside, "you figure out how to live." I'm not sure I remember how. Julia turned toward me. "You're one of the strongest people I know, Mira. You survived watching your daughter die. You survived being abandoned by your family. You survived grief that would have destroyed most people. You can survive this too. What if I don't just want to survive? What if I want to truly live but have forgotten how?" Then you learn again, one day at a time, one choice at a time. We sat quietly for a while, the air filled with both loss and possibility. "Do you think I'm a terrible person?" I asked, "for what I did to them?" Julia took a moment before replying. "I think you're someone who was deeply hurt and reacted. You made choices I might not have made, but I also think they brought this upon themselves. They chose cruelty when you needed kindness. Now they face the results of that." Vanessa said, "I use the legal system as a weapon for revenge. You revealed actual crimes. The revenge was in your intent, but the crimes were real. The victims were real. Even if your motives were personal, the result was still justice. Justice that I pursued only to hurt her." "Does that make it less valid?" I had no answer. 3 months after the second anniversary, I made a decision. I hired a lawyer and sent official cease and desist letters to my parents and Vanessa. No contact, no intermediaries, no exceptions. Any violation would bring legal action. It felt final, irreversible. Like closing the last door on a relationship that had been fading my whole life. I also made another decision. I began volunteering at a pediatric cancer support organization, helping families going through the same nightmare I once lived. I explained medical terms, guided them through hospital systems, and helped them find resources they didn't know existed. It was difficult. Every child reminded me of Grace. Every struggling parent reflected my own past pain. But it gave me meaning in a way revenge never did. One evening, I sat with a young mother. Her 5-year-old son was in the final stage of leukemia. She looked lost, barely 25. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "How do I watch my child die?" "You just do," I said softly. "One moment at a time. Be there, hold his hand. Tell him you love him. Make every second matter. What comes after?" "How do you survive it?" she asked. I thought about Grace, about the past 2 years, about everything gained and lost. "You survive by choosing to," I said. "Each day you wake up and decide to keep breathing. Some days that's all you can do. Other days you can do more. But it starts with the choice. Does it get easier?" she asked. "No," I said. "It just changes. The grief shifts shape. The pain becomes familiar instead of unbearable. You learn to carry it, but not easier." She began to cry and I held her. A stranger, yet somehow living my nightmare again. When I left that night, something changed inside me. Not healing exactly, but maybe the first sign of purpose beyond pain. Months went by. Vanessa remained in prison. Her appeals were denied. My parents stayed in Oklahoma, older, alone. I heard through family that they had reached out to others, trying to justify their side, but no one believed them. Public opinion had turned permanently against them. Vanessa's new house was sold to pay restitution. My parents declared bankruptcy. The weight of their choices had destroyed them, exactly as I intended. I waited to feel victorious, but I didn't. Instead, I just felt tired. Tired of anger. Tired of pain. Tired of living in the past. Grace was gone. My family was gone. The revenge was over. But I was still here, still breathing, still existing in days that felt empty. One Sunday at the support group, Patricia asked everyone to share something we were grateful for. It was a regular exercise, one I often avoided. When it was my turn, I surprised myself by speaking. "I'm grateful that I learned who I can trust. I'm grateful I discovered who my family truly was before wasting more years on them. I'm grateful for the time I had with Grace, even though it was short. And I'm grateful that, despite everything, I can still help others." Patricia smiled. "That's growth, Mira, real growth. Maybe it was. Or maybe it was simply the understanding that revenge had reached its end, leaving me amid the aftermath, unsure of what came next." On the 3rd anniversary of Grace's death, I visited the cemetery as I always did, but this time, Julia came with me. She stood silently beside me while I placed flowers and strawberries at the headstone. "I love you, Grace," I said. "I always will. Every day for the rest of my life. You made me better while you were here. After you were gone, I changed. Became someone harder, capable of cruelty I never thought possible." I paused to collect my thoughts. "Your aunt was right. You'd probably be disappointed in what I did. But I don't regret it. They hurt us. They made their choice. They needed to understand that choices have consequences." Julia gently squeezed my shoulder. "I'm trying to find my way back," I said. "Not to who I was before you died. That person no longer exists. But to someone who can live with the grief instead of being ruled by it. Someone who honors your memory by helping others instead of hurting those who failed us." I touched the headstone one last time. "I hope you're happy wherever you are. I hope you're running through parks, eating strawberries, and singing your little songs. I hope you know how deeply you were loved. And still are." Julia and I left the cemetery together. We had lunch at a small cafe, and for the first time in 3 years, I talked about Grace without crying. I told Julia stories about her daughter's laugh, her unique way of seeing the world, her fearless imagination. "She sounds like she was incredible," Julia said. "She was," I replied. "She really was." That evening, I received one last message, forwarded through my lawyer. It was from my mother, sent officially as required by the cease and desist order. "Mira, I know you don't want to hear from us again. I'm respecting that. This will be my last message. I just need you to know that we're sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. We failed you in the worst possible way. We chose wrong and we've paid for it. We lost everything that mattered. Our daughter is in prison. Our granddaughter is gone. We're estranged from you. We're alone, broke, and broken. You got your revenge. I hope it gave you peace. I hope Grace is proud of who you've become. I'll always love you even if you can't love us anymore. Mom. I read it once, then deleted it. Vanessa served 3 years before being released on parole. I learned through a news alert I had set up to follow her case. She was required to live in a halfway house, working minimum wage jobs, banned from any role involving healthcare or sales. I didn't contact her. I didn't attend her release. She was a stranger now, linked to me only by blood and a past that no longer held meaning. My parents continued their quiet life in Oklahoma. My father's health remained fragile. My mother, I heard, had aged rapidly, her hair completely white, her hands trembling, whether from illness or the weight of guilt and loss. They had lost their golden child to prison and their other daughter to justified fury. Their retirement vanished in legal fees and debt. They lost their reputation, their peace, their community. The consequences I had set in motion unfolded exactly as I had intended. They suffered. They understood. They paid for choosing celebration over mourning, a party over a funeral for leaving me when I needed them most. And yet, as I sat alone in my apartment one quiet Tuesday evening, 3 years and 7 months after Grace's death, I understood something new. The revenge had been justified, even necessary, but it hadn't healed me. It hadn't brought Grace back. It hadn't filled the emptiness her loss created. What began to heal me, slowly, painfully, was choosing to move forward. Choosing to help other families facing what I had faced. Choosing to find purpose in grief rather than letting it consume me. Choosing to honor Grace's memory by creating light instead of spreading darkness. I looked at her photo on my mantle, the one from her 3rd birthday, 2 months before her diagnosis. She was laughing, her face smeared with chocolate cake, her eyes full of joy. I whispered to the photo, "Sweetheart, they hurt us," and I made sure they understood what that meant. This path taught me that those who should love us most can still betray us deeply. But it also showed me that I'm stronger than I ever realized. Strong enough to survive losing you, strong enough to destroy those who failed us, and maybe strong enough to build something new from what's left. Outside my window, the city moved on, its endless rhythm continuing. People lived their lives unaware of my story, untouched by my grief or anger. The world kept turning, indifferent to loss, indifferent to revenge, indifferent to everything but its own motion. And I kept turning with it, carrying Grace's memory, the weight of what I had done, and the small hope that someday that weight might feel less like punishment and more like strength.